Come on in, you guys. We got a brand new episode of Jimmy Rants in store for you here today. JimmyRants.com is the website. And if you want to engage live in the show, you got to go follow me. I'm over here on Instagram. I am at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you are there, you can engage live just like Beth and Deborah. And oh man, I'm going to get in trouble if I start naming off all the people that are coming in so fast. But thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. We also simulcast over on my Facebook page. So what's up, you guys? Thanks for being here today as well. And also my YouTubers over on my live stream on my YouTube channel. So thank you guys for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live on Instagram, they have changed it. They used to leave it up for 24 hours as a video. Well, when I end the video, the last couple of days, I noticed this and it shocked me the first day because I got no notification about this. But now what they do is they let you post the entire episode on IGTV. So you might notice from the Ask Me Anything episode I did yesterday, the entire 58 minutes plus of the Jimmy Rants went straight to IGTV. And so now you can watch it pretty much on demand on IGTV. So follow me here. I've got a category that I call Jimmy Rants. So all the Jimmy Rants episodes will be listed on IGTV right here on Instagram. Of course, if you want to see it on other formats, we also have it at JimmyRants.com. It will always be there no matter what the social media people do with our content. I will always have my videos there. And of course, over here on YouTube, we do archive them there as well. Just type in a keyword Jimmy Rants and you will find the show. So there's many ways you can watch Jimmy Rants. Just thank you for being here and thank you for all of your support of my work. Okay, got a good topic for you here today because you all know people in your life who, when you try to point out things that maybe could make their life better, and you try to constructively come up with ways to communicate that with them, that they don't really take the criticism that well. Now, let me make some caveats up front because I am often accused by some people online that, well, you don't take criticism well because we tell you all these things and you don't do them and da-da-da. There is a very clear difference between someone who comes to you and says, hey, I love you, man. And because I love you and because we're friends, because I care about you and want you to be better, here are some things I'm observing. And in that observation of what I see, I don't think it's necessarily serving you well. Okay, and maybe that initial kind of shock of hearing, the various things that they say might make you want to kind of fight back a little bit. But the unfortunate thing is most people don't come at criticism giving it with love. So when you give constructive criticism to someone else as a means of loving them, caring about them, and wanting them to be better, it's going to come across way, way different than if you have a hater online who makes a claim of, well, I've told you to do this, this, and this, and you don't do it, and you don't like criticism. And sometimes I'll even call out some of the haters or whatever, and they'll say, well, you just don't ever want to be criticized. No, no, no. I welcome criticism. Tell me something that I'm doing wrong and how I can be better. And this is how we all grow as humans, by the way. If we don't have people in our life that love us enough to want to call us out when we don't do things well, I hope you have those people in your life and I hope you welcome them in your life. We need people to keep us in check. You can call it whoever you want, but have like accountability partners who will watch you and be your friend and love you and care for you and give you encouragement all along the way. But sometimes in tough love, sharing things that maybe you don't want to hear, but you need to hear. And of course, you can take it the wrong way. And, oh my gosh, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 blah. Or you can say, you know what? This person genuinely has my back. They've always been there. They've been my go-to. And I've got a few of those people in my life. I've got about 4 or 5 people that I tell them, just call me out. If I do something stupid, call me out. If I have a room for improvement, call me out. And here's the fun part. I get to call them out too. And so So you're kind of keeping each other accountable. So if you don't have accountability partners in your life and that will criticize you when you need to be criticized sometimes, you need to get that. But back to the topic at hand. How do you get through to someone who just simply cannot take criticism at all? And you know these people, they respond very poorly. Most of the time you'll say, hey, XYZ. Oh no, I don't X, Y, or Z. And oh my gosh, what are you talking about? And the first thing they want to do is defend themselves. And I suppose that's human nature. We all want to defend how we believe and how we act and blah, blah, blah. But if you care about that person truly and you want them to really be better, then you will say these things, even if it hurts their feelings in the temporary. Do you guys have relationships like that? Do you seek out people who you know love you enough to call you out? If you don't, then I think you're missing out on a very key piece of the human experience, because humans are intended to live their lives and to kind of keep check on each other. Now, again, I'm going to repeat this over and over. There are people who criticize because they just want to criticize and make you feel bad and make themselves feel better. So let's not diminish that there are people out there like that. That's why when you have people who are critical of you, see who they are to you. Most of the people that are critical of Jimmy Moore, they hate Jimmy Moore. They make it very clear they hate Jimmy Moore. And I remember when I first was gaining some weight back and people were like, well, just cut your calories. And of course I would live my life and keep doing the things. And then they're like, well, you just didn't take the criticism very well because I told you to cut your calories. And if you just cut your calories, you would have lost weight. And you wouldn't be a fat ass today, blah, 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 blah. And so you're going to have those people that don't really have your best interests in mind. Find the people that do have your best interests in mind. And I would say keep it limited. Like I said, I've got about 4 to 5 people right now that if I called them up and said, okay, am I doing some stupid stuff? Call me out. They would call me out. And those same people, I call them out. And that's how we roll. That authentic, real relationship with other people makes this criticism all the easier. But even still, you still have people that respond poorly to criticism. So I found this article, again, Psychology Today. Guys, if you don't read Psychology Today, they put out some really good mindset types of articles that really make you think. And I loved this one. The title says, When Someone Won't Own Up to Their Bad Behavior. What is the best way to approach a person who reacts poorly to criticism? And again, we know people just like that. We know people that you could bring it in the most loving, caring language possible. You could try to like soften the blow and not really go so hard on what you really feel about the criticism, but any inkling of criticism at all and the person snaps. Can I tell you those kind of people? Got a whole nother Jimmy rants on this one. Those kind of people are narcissistic. Because if you're not humble enough to know that you are not perfect, if you're not humble enough to know that you're not the be-all, end-all knowledge bearer, you are going to be humbled at some point in your life, if you haven't already. And here's the funny thing. A true narcissist at that degree doesn't even realize how deep they are in their own narcissism. And so those are the people that I find have the toughest time with criticism because they're all me focused and they don't see the value in what other people are saying about them because, again, they have all the answers and they do no wrong. Now, certain political leaders have been described as narcissistic and other ones point out that. And anyway, it gets kind of ugly when you kind of look at it from the mainstream standpoint. But let's see what happens in these interpersonal relationship of how you get someone to respond to a criticism without responding poorly. So let's read this article. It's rarely effective to directly criticize someone for not taking responsibility for their misbehavior. In fact, it's quite the opposite, especially if a person is fiercely defensive when you blame them for culpable conduct Their response probably won't come anywhere close to what you'd hope. Yeah, there's this thing called embarrassment. There's this thing called everybody wants to be right. Everybody wants to think that they make good decisions. People feel like if you own up to a bad decision, that somehow you are exposing a weakness, and people don't like feeling weak. Can I tell you, I got over that a long time ago. If I mess up, I'm the first to admit, oh my gosh, I messed up. I'm so sorry. How could I have allowed that to happen? But I own up to it. And I think that's where people who respond poorly to criticism, they don't want to own up to it because it makes them look bad. And people think, oh, if you look bad, people will think less of you. If you look bad and you show contrition because of the thing you did that you're now being criticized for, and you show contrition back and admit your mistake, you know how much more people are going to value you for your maturity and your ability to recognize, oh my gosh, I messed up. So much more respect. Like, I'm thinking of specific people in my life that I know royally effed up, like bad. And then they admit to it. Am I upset about the original behavior? Absolutely. Am I more impressed, though, by the way they handled themselves in the midst of that? Even more so. And you could probably concur with that with a lot of people in your life. They're likely to archly defend themselves, project their blame back on you. That's the funny one. When you share criticism with someone, they don't go, oh, let me think about that. They're like, no, you're the one that da-da-da. And it just becomes this immediate, whatever you said to them, they try to throw it back and project it on to you. Deep psychological problems with people that can't admit their own mistakes. And again, I think it's rooted in narcissism. It's rooted in people who think very highly of themselves, that they're the be-all, end-all and arbiters of all things right. I know people in my life right now that they've never done a wrong thing in their life. That's what they think. And that, you know, whatever they say is absolutely true 100% of the time, and that anything that runs counter to what they believe is absolutely wrong. And yeah, there's real people out there that believe that, you guys. And you know them. You're thinking of specific names and people in your life right now. They popped in your head when I said that. Think about those people as I keep reading this, because these are the people that you're trying to reach with some criticism about things, and they're not responding very, very good. So they project their blame back onto you, then they search for something, anything, to attack the person criticizing them, or I don't want to talk about it. That's the big one. I have a few friends in my life that when things get a little bit rocky in like being called out, I don't want to talk about it. No. If you say you don't want to talk about it, I want to talk about it all the more. Because you think, okay, I don't want to talk about it, and thus we don't talk about it, it's swept under the rug and it goes away. I'm not one of those people, especially if it's a pretty egregious act. Let's get it out in the open. Let's talk about it. Let's be real. Let's be vulnerable. And let's talk about it like human beings that are adults, that are mature enough to learn from the mistakes. And I think the person who refuses to admit they ever make mistakes, you're the person that's holding back the world. Because I think we all make mistakes. And when we make a mistake, not in a very flippant way, well, I'm sorry, and just move on with your life. It's not about that. And it's not even about the words, I'm sorry. It's about truly feeling what the criticism was, recognizing the value in what that criticism is, applying the lesson learned from it, and then showing true contrition with that person who brought it to you and being thankful to them. Again, coming to you in love. If you joined us late, I don't think criticism in and of itself needs to always be heated. If someone, and I've talked about this, I get a lot of haters online, people all the time giving me unsolicited advice and criticizing me for this, that, and in between. And then they're like, well, you just don't like criticism. Well, I don't like criticism from assholes who don't have my best interest in mind. But I do like it from people who I know love me and come to me in the spirit of love. And there's been many times when I've been in the midst of having some controversy about something I said or did or whatever, and I have these ugly people coming after me like full bore, and then one certain friend will write me and say, yeah, dude, you were wrong. You messed up. And here's why. Then I change. And I think we need to be surrounding ourselves with those kinds of friends that they're unafraid to mess with the relationship. There's a lot of people, they don't want those relationships because they don't want to run the risk of losing good people in their lives. But if you have a truly good person in your life that's a friend and you don't have them call you out and vice versa, how deep is that relationship? How good is that friendship? We need to be holding each other accountable. Now, I don't think you need to nitpick about every little thing. Oh, you pick your nose when you go this. No, you don't need to do that kind of stuff. But you definitely need to see the big picture on things and realize maybe someone doesn't recognize when they're doing destructive behavior, and you can call them out on it. Oh my gosh, wow, like you opened my eyes. I didn't even realize that was going on. And sometimes people are like, well, how would they not know? Sometimes stresses in life circumstances can make you do silly, stupid stuff. So just recognize that as you're approaching this subject of giving criticism to someone who may not take it very well. They use the words defend, divert, deny, and disengage. That pretty much sums up their resistant behavioral repertoire when they found fault with it. So defend, they want to defend themselves. Obviously, I think that's the knee-jerk reaction most people have when they hear criticism. Divert, oh, no. You think my problems are bad? Yours are way, way worse. Oh my God, let me tell you all the ways that you're a horrible human being. That's divert. Deny, no. What are you talking about? Well, I didn't, what? What's that criticism coming? What? No. And disengage, I want to talk about it. We know people that employ all four of those strategies. So, in such exasperating instances, what can you do? What, if anything, will work in getting through to people who are obstinate about criticism? For starters, consider anyone who's particularly insecure and therefore possesses an extremely fragile ego, a will to safeguard their vulnerability, reacting to a perceived attack defensively. We all have personality types. And you pretty much, with your circle of friends and family, you know the personality type of someone, whether they're very strong-willed. I'm one of those. Imagine that. Or someone who's very meek and very tender, and if you say something even in a certain tone, you could destroy them. And spouses do this a lot. They kind of know each other and how each other ticks, and you can push buttons. And we all have pushed those buttons with the people in our lives. And so you already know whether someone can take criticism well or not. You also know the style by which you deliver that criticism and how people are going to take it. And you have to keep that in mind. That is the very first thing that we all kind of need to analyze who it is that we're bringing this criticism to and whether they could take it. Now, if someone is a very known narcissist, that's going to be the hardest person to reach, which we talked about earlier. But most other people, they might just have, bitter feelings or whatever, and you can kind of dance around that, which we're going to talk about here. But most people are going to try to keep themselves safe by deflecting attention away from any perceived weaknesses that they might have. Deep down within, they feel compelled to deflect all of the criticism. Back in 1986, there was a resource for mental health professionals called Paradoxical Strategies. It was published in Psychotherapy, that's a medical journal. Many of the immediate non-commonsensical change techniques that were described in this are refinements of what is commonly known as reverse or negative psychology. And what unites these powerful but tricky and counterintuitive methods is that when they're properly implemented, they can neutralize a client's resistance versus inadvertently bolstering it. We all know when we brought criticism to people before, sometimes your criticism of them for things that they've done only makes the matter worse. And so the goal is to neutralize that and or make it better. And you would hope that someone who is mature enough would hear criticism, again, from a loving perspective of someone they love and respect, take it, and apply the lessons from it. I think in this day and age of social media, here on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and all the rest, people will get criticized by someone they don't know. And so when you get criticism, fair or not, when you get criticism from someone who is a stranger, it's a far different beast than getting criticism who is a best friend or a very close family member that you trust. Admit it, and I'll be the first to admit it. When I get criticism from someone who has no idea who I am, there's some Joe Schmo, nameless, faceless person on the internet, and they say some really ugly, critical comments, my first reaction isn't, oh, let me apply the lessons that you just shared with me. No, I want to bite their head off. Like, that's the first reaction. So I think the messenger matters here. If it's not someone within your inner circle, you've got to, and I don't think you have to necessarily just have people in your inner circle call you out and give you criticism, but I think you value their criticism much more so than you do some random person on the internet. Now, again, that does not say that we need to just ignore other people who criticize, but look at their heart, look at where they're coming from. One thing that I always do is I look at how long they've been following me. If I recognize your username online, and there's a bunch of you that have been following me for over 10 years, and you're a long-time follower and you're telling me things that are in critical, loving way critical, I'll listen to you. If someone has a blank avatar and some no-name username and they're just saying the ugliest, vilest things in the world, yeah, I don't care what you think. I really don't, because you're nothing to me. Okay, you're watching me, great, beautiful. But that doesn't mean you have my best interests in mind. So there is kind of a nuance to this that I think we need to be mindful of. All criticism does not merit your attention. Criticism from people that are in your life, have been in your life, have your best interests in mind, and have always been supportive and loving to you, listen to those people. That's kind of the litmus test here. If you're able to grasp how easily some people are taken hostage by their psychological defense mechanisms, it makes perfect sense that the only way you can reach them is, paradoxically, to validate them in what you can't help, but then regard as the wrong-headed perspective. Yet at the same time, you need to get across to them that you don't and can't agree with what they did. So this is a tricky little thing. Did you hear all that? You need to validate them in what you can't help, but regard as their wrong-headed perspective. And to get across to them that you don't and can't agree with them. I think you say, you know what? What you did there is kind of disappointing. Like, I expect better. I think you could do better, and I know you can do better. I've known you a long time. I love you, and with the best intentions here, I want you to know, I want you to be better as a human being. I want you to overcome whatever this obstacle is, whatever this mistake was. And yes, you messed up, but I'm going to be right here to help you as you move on and heal from whatever this was. Just know I have your best interest in mind. Please call me anytime if you want to talk about this further, but you really shouldn't have done this, but I still love you. I'm still here for you. Da, 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 da. Do you see how loving and wonderful that is? That we don't need to take this position of you're bad and just like berate people. I think that makes people just shudder in fear and cower rather than opening up to them and getting them to open up. That's the key here. You want people to open up. When they messed up, you don't want to berate them. When they mess up, you say, you know what? You messed up. I mess up. You mess up. We all mess up. We own up to it. We face the music. We face the consequences of those actions. And then we make corrective behavior. And we move on with our lives. But there's people, you point out some kind of a mistake they made or criticize them in any way, and some people break off relationships. They end friendships. They don't talk to family members. I remember my brother Kevin and my dad, there was some disagreement they had, some argument. And it was something my dad was critical of my brother about, and this was many moons ago. My brother's dead now, but when he was a teenager, they didn't talk for 10 years. Didn't talk at all for 10 years. And so people will hold that as a grudge. So then you have all this kind of tension and dynamic with people. And I think humans were not meant to have this kind of angst over and over and over again. Of course, from the health perspective, holding on to that angst raises cortisol and makes your health much worse. Live your life without regret. Live your life without any kind of boundaries like that kind of binds you up. That's how I choose to live my life, you guys, and I encourage you to follow suit. Appropriately executed, what such ironically supportive corroboration does is is not have you actually concur with their viewpoint. You're not agreeing with them, but you acknowledge that it feels genuine to them. Erroneous or not, it's held with sincerity and more than likely with considerable conviction too. So when you come along and you tell someone, you know what, you messed up, but I get it. I can see how you went there. I don't agree that you went there, but I can see why you did that. I can see what would make you take that action or say that thing. I get it. I don't agree with it. I think you need to be very contrite about that. And you don't need to do that again, but I see why you did it and how you got there. Do you see how the person that's being criticized now goes, okay, somebody gets me. Somebody understands me. Somebody knows I had good intentions in doing this. And maybe they're more receptive to the criticism because you were willing to put yourself in their shoes and to acknowledge at least a piece of the puzzle that they had good intentions when they did that. In a word, from their mindset, it sounds authentic. You're being real. And that's like the bottom line. If we're not being real with each other in this world, who the heck's going to be real to us? Like, we have enough fakery coming out of Hollywood, fakery coming out of the political realm, fakery here online. You know, people, they write stuff and you're like, no, that's not true. There's no way their life is that perfect. Like, you can make yourself look just absolutely stunningly perfect, happy family here on Instagram and on Facebook and YouTube. You can do all the things to make it appear you're something you're not. And that's not authentic. And people see right through that. I hope one thing you notice when you look at a Jimmy Rants video, I am 100% authentic 100% of the time. What you see is what you get. I don't hold back who I am. If I say something that offends you, that's me. If I say something that encourages you, that's me. I don't try to fake being anyone. Authenticity is my middle name. So to the degree that addressing a person in a sympathetic way accurately reflects their reality, they'll be left with very little to defend against. Think about all those people who lash back when you give them criticism. If you say, you know what, I understand how you got there, and I probably would be tempted to make that same decision that you did, but you really shouldn't do it again, but I see how you got there. Now you look like you are a caring, loving, I get it kind of friend or family member. And your criticism might be accepted a little better than it would have but for you taking that position. As a consequence, taking such an accommodating approach will increase the possibility that they'll eventually admit to something that otherwise they would have held on to stubbornly. Oh my gosh. Like, let people's guards down, because people's guards go way up real fast, especially when they feel like they were in the right with their decision, especially if they don't really feel like they did anything wrong, and especially if it's not necessarily a commonly perceived thing that they did that was commonly perceived as wrong. It just was a different way of approaching. Maybe there would have been a better way. So then there's the opportunity to say, you know what, I could see that that would be a way that you would choose, and you decided to choose that. Here's a way that might have been better to turn out for a better outcome. Now, I'm speaking greatly in generality, so I hope you're okay with that. But I think you can apply it to real world situations when you have conflict and criticism to share. Despite the aversive effect their actions have had on others, you're ascribing to them benign versus aggressive or malicious intentions. And frankly, it's a whole lot easier for people generally to admit wrongdoing when they are not being assaulted for it. Again, it's human nature. Somebody's attacking you. The first thing you want to do is go on the offensive and attack back. So let's acknowledge that. Let's acknowledge going after someone directly for something they did is a very bad way to handle criticism. But if you come alongside, put your arm around them and say, you know what, buddy, this was not good. I can see how you got there, but this was not good. Here's how you could have done a little better. Maybe we can work together. Please stay in touch. I want to help you. I still love you. I still care about you. I want you to be better. I want you to move on from this. But this was a mistake, and I hope you can own that. And if you do it in that kind of tone, and even that tone that I just used is so critical. The words are one thing, but the tone is another. If someone senses even a little bit of an accusatory tone, they're going to bite back at you as well. So loving tone, loving words, walking alongside of them, and never, ever making them feel like they're being assaulted for what they're saying. In a sense, you're joining along with them. You're showing them that you can understand where they're coming from and what might have made their questionable behavior irresistible. But at least implicitly, you're also making it known that you do not see the situation in the same way that they do. By way of qualification, it needs to be emphasized that you can't effectively intervene in this manner unless you're able to appreciate their admittedly self-interest motives benevolently. And in many cases, rising to that level of empathy or fellow feeling can be exceptionally challenging. If something they did was egregious, you guys, that you would never in a million years yourself do, to come alongside them and say, yeah, I see how you got to that, could be very hard for people, because some people may not actually see how you got there in your mode of thinking. But you say that you see it. And so then they respond, yeah, it seems so obvious that was the right choice. And then you're like, yeah, I could see how that would be just an irresistible choice. You didn't want to, not do it. And then you go, but here's a better way. Here's how it could have ended better. Here's why maybe this was a mistake this time. And sharing that in love and care for the person and support for the person. All right. So let's provide an example so that this reframing of the criticism will seem, if not exactly conforming to conventional logic, definitely it's reasonable psychologically. So here's the example, you guys. Let's say you have a family of 3, one parent and 2 sons, could also be daughters. One son is 12 years old, the other one's 9 years old. The younger son gets the lion's share of parental attention because he's the baby. He's afflicted with a serious case of autism, so he requires a whole lot more guidance than the 12-year-old does. The older son, though, starts to feel ignored, aggrieved, and resentful about the little brother, takes out his frustrations with what he feels like is inequity by constantly picking on the younger brother with autism. When confronted with his hostile acting out behavior, he adamantly denies it. Anybody had a situation like this? If you have kids, I've never had kids, so I haven't had to do this experientially as a parent. But for those of you that are parents, you know you've seen this kind of behavior out there. What if the parents approach the 12-year-old by saying, look, we think what's going on is your brother gets a whole lot more attention than you do, and that's really upsetting and unfair to you. Is that right? And of course, the child will always agree with that. And then add on to the complaints. And that might be why you are picking on him. Is that right? Because it's the only way you know how to tell us that you feel like he's getting a lot more attention and a lot more of the love from us than you are. So the parents give him a sympathetic response, expressing compassion and concern and understanding for the older child's predicament. At that point, it's likely to open up productive communication with the child because the child finally feels validated in their feelings. This stuff works, you guys. The older son isn't being directly accused of his unacceptable behavior, but instead is having the discontent that he's having about the situation correctly and caringly identified for him. So basically they point out, okay, we get it. We see why you're doing what you're doing. We see you. And you know what? We messed up. We could be better for you. But know that this younger brother of yours does have specific needs that we need to take care of, and thus we do give him that attention, but we will do a better job of caretaking for you and making sure all your needs are met. Does that work for you? If you agree to stop picking on him, will you allow us the opportunity to correct this wrong? Can you imagine, like, that 12-year-old's just gonna go, whoa, finally. It's pretty amazing. So as a result of empathetic communication like this, the child risks very little in accepting their evaluation about the sibling conflict. The parent's focus is not on punishing him, which could make him feel that much worse about himself and lead to more angry, acting out behavior, but instead on sympathetically understanding the situation so he can safely begin to share his deeper anxieties about being neglected or even rejected or perceived rejected that he's been experiencing. His bad behavior towards his brother is reframed as a form of protest, and the parent spotlight isn't on his badness as much as the probable hurt feelings about his vengeful behavior. And now the older child goes, oh my gosh, why did I take it out on my younger brother who has special needs with his autism? All around, it ends in a very happy ending. But could you see how a parent says, stop beating on the younger brother? Would that help the matter at all? No, because they're not acknowledging his own hurt, his own desire to be paid attention to. This is powerful stuff, you guys. Now, note that the older son's continuing to behave in this unacceptable way will be decreased because it's now been called out. And it was called out compassionately rather than critically. So doubtless the parents would also need to let the child know that whenever he feels discounted, dismissed, or disregarded, a much better option, rather than teasing his little brother or disparaging him, would be to share his hurt feelings with them. So now you're inviting the older child to come to you when they're starting to have those feelings, rather than going straight to the brother and doing whatever he's doing to the brother. Then they'll do all they can to reassure him he's just as important a family member as his brother is. So that's the example, you guys. Dialoguing with an unhappy, disgruntled child would almost certainly necessitate more expansion than can be furnished in this article. Still, this illustration should provide some sense of how a resistant person's defenses can be substantially reduced simply by articulating their headstrong position much more kind-heartedly than maybe they themselves could. Frankly, it's not easy to carry out this kind of intervention if you're really upset with that person's undeniably abusive behavior. Think about a parent that sees a younger child being beat up by the older child. Think about the emotion that would evoke within you. You want to end it as soon as possible. The first gut reaction as the parent is, oh my gosh, stop doing that. Why are you doing that? We're going to punish you. We're going to take away your video games for a month. Ah! And does that solve the problem? No, he's going to go back and get the younger brother even more because he feels like the younger brother brought on this because he's getting all the attention, and all he's doing is trying to get attention as the older brother. You see how it cascades, but the solution works brilliantly. But if you offer a non-judgmental and non-condescending viewpoint, you can grasp things from their vulnerability protecting point of view. They're likely to appreciate your attempt to sympathetically connect with them, and that's how you lower their defenses, prompt them to see you not as a threat, but as someone who would like peacefully to resolve the issue that's becoming troublesome. After all, what's crucial is that what they take in about you is needed for them. And those of you that are parents, you know when you talk to a child, and you've got different personalities with children, you got very strong-willed children, you got very meek children, you have to come meet them where they are. And if you come in full bore with a meek child, you could break their will right away. Or if you come in too timid to a strong-willed child, that strong-willed child's going to run all over you. So you have to kind of also bring that into the picture as well. This is one reason that I advise virtually everyone I work with professionally to state their grievances with another person by starting out with the most empathetic statement they can muster. And this one hits home for me because I have very real conflicts with a couple people in my family, one very specific one who did some egregious acts to me when I was younger. And I'm having a hard time sometimes with what to do in communicating with him. And in that, I have tried in my heart to empathize with him of why he did the things he did that were very wrong, and see it from his viewpoint. Can I tell you how incredibly hard that is? Like, when you've been hurt, like really bad hurt because of the actions of others, and if I try to point out what he did because he's denied the things, it is me bringing him criticism. So I'm even trying to learn this lesson that I'm talking about here in my own life, because approaching someone who's done some egregious things to you and offering, I didn't really like that you did X, Y, Z. How do you do that? So my thing is I'm trying to relate it to he was treated in the way he treated me. He was treated by his father that way. And so therefore coming at it from that empathetic standpoint, you know what? I think it's horrible what happened to you when you were a kid. How did you get through that? Wow, it was just amazing that you went through all that. It's extraordinarily difficult when you go through that kind of thing. Can I tell you, the same thing happened to me. And I have had a hard time in my life because of that. And just see if that opens the dialogue. And again, this is not an easy talk. It's not an easy subject. It's something that's still a work in progress for Jimmy Moore, but it is something that is necessary if you're going to move forward in your life. This can be very tough when that person's behavior is truly disturbing. Again, in my own situation, there was abuse involved. How do you talk under that auspice? I think you'll find this compassionate approach well worth the effort. And even if it doesn't work, at least you'll know that now you've tried just about everything. This is a great tactic, you guys. It's time to decide how to best move forward in relating to such an individual. And again, if you missed the beginning of this, we were talking about how you approach someone who doesn't own up to their own bad behavior. And I made the comment that if you're dealing with someone who is significantly narcissistic and full of themselves and believe they never do any wrong, we know people like that in our lives, all of us do, I think they're going to be the most incredibly difficult to get through to. And a lot of those people will never admit to doing wrong. And you have to be okay with that. Sometimes we want closure. Sometimes we want people to own up to mistakes. But there's going to be people in your life who will never, ever own up to the mistakes that they've made. And so if you try to bring up to them in any kind of fashion, compassionate or right at them, criticism of behavior that they've done, they're probably not going to take it very well, because narcissism just doesn't allow them to do that. So, all right, let's see what you guys have to say. Going to come to Instagram Live here first. Then we'll come over to Facebook Live. And if we have time, we'll come to YouTube Live. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. Beth says, can IGTV be live or just after the fact? No. For those of you that came in late, yes, the Instagram Lives will always be here live. So you guys are watching this live right now. But when it's over, when I go to save it, it saves it to IGTV. So you'll watch it after the fact on IGTV. So thank you for that, Beth. I am good at limiting my criticism to those I trust enough to receive it without them gaslighting. And see, that's the danger. A lot of people, they think they're helping someone by offering criticism, but they're really just making the situation worse, which is why this strategy in this Psychology Today article is so good, because you're kind of meeting them where they are and yet still delivering the criticism rather than just bam, this is what you did wrong and you're so bad. Nobody's going to respond well to that. When I get criticism, I always consider the words said, whether during the convo or after, as a reflection. Yeah, I reflect a lot when I hear things, and again, with the context of I'm a public figure, I get a lot of criticism and comments made about me. I don't give them all equal weight. If you're a friend or family member that I know and love and trust, I value you more than anybody. If you're a longtime follower that I know has followed my work and is a fan of my work, and you say something that's critical, I'm going to listen to you. If you're somebody I've never heard of before and you're just basically criticizing me because you think I'm a horrible human being or whatever your thing, I don't give a crap what you think. So bite me. Even then, though, I'll sometimes, okay, is that something I need to evaluate? You know what I sometimes do? I'll take those criticisms I get from someone like that, and I'll call one of my friends that I trust. And I'll be like, all right, this was said about me. Are you seeing this? Is this true? Like, what's going on? And then they'll say, oh, yeah, I've been meaning to tell you that, Jimmy. Oh, crap, you know, and so then it becomes a real thing. And most of the time, they're like, no. Stop listening to those kinds of people. They don't have your best interest in mind. I found myself defending myself. Will never work with someone determined to only see their view. Again, narcissism lives strong, as they say. Sometimes my ego gets the best of me as I plead my case with hateful criticism. I'm human. Well, I think it is human because when someone comes at you really strong without this spirit of love we've been talking about, it is only human to want to lash back and defend yourself, especially when you feel like the criticism is unfair and they're not seeing the complete picture of how you came to the decision that you made. And I get criticism quite a bit about like my podcasting style. So here on Jimmy Rants, I have a certain style, very folksy. That's just who I am. On my podcast, sometimes I'll just be silly and funny, crack a joke, play music, sing, whatever. And people go, oh, you need to keep it so professional. And I don't know why you don't keep it professional. I will never listen. Okay. Thank you for that. I'm purposely being Jimmy Moore because that's the best. That's the I know him better than anybody. And I don't pretend like I need to be in your box of how you live your life. I live my life in the way I want to live it. And so people are like, oh my gosh, you have to conform to what I want. No, I don't. And that's another lesson here. Not all criticism is valid. Some criticism is just someone bitching at you. And that's not valid criticism. It's just someone expressing what they want you to do. And the last time I checked, we all have our own lives to live, and we can live them in the way we want to live them. And if someone doesn't like my podcast because of my style, stop listening to my podcast! How easy is that? Duh. All right, let's come over here. Thank you, Instagram, to my Facebook page. Hello, guys. Thanks for being here today. See what you have in store for me here. Happy Catterday, says my friend April. Is it Catterday? I've got 2 cats around here somewhere. They're hiding. No comments today, Facebook. That's interesting. But thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. All right, let's pop over to my YouTube channel. See what you guys have to say. Oh, wow. Look at all these comments. Hello, Shirley. Hello, Keto Grace. Keto Grace says, that's most of my family. What, narcissists? That's sad if you got a bunch of narcissists in your family. Shirley says, sadly, it sounds like you're describing my husband. I'm the first person to admit when I'm wrong. It's definitely a hard place to be in a relationship like that. Yeah, I hate people. And hey, Jill, she says, good chat. I hate people that have to live lives with people in their life who just refuse to change and refuse to admit when they're wrong, and just nothing ever is their fault. And we all know people like that. Can I tell you, a big dose of humility goes a long way in this world. Like, think about all the people that are in it for themselves. And I've always tried to live my life in a way that's very selfless, because I think selflessness is the greatest strength you could have in your life. Selflessness, compassion, love for others. That's how I choose to live my life. It's how I want to be treated by other people. And knowing that most people don't choose love, don't choose selflessness, don't choose compassion makes you stand out like a sore thumb when you have it. And so if you're not that way already, can I behoove you to shift in that direction? Because can you imagine if the whole world had other people's best interests in mind? We wouldn't have conflict. If you had the best interests in mind of other people, when you bring criticism to them, you can do it in love. And people know when you're coming to them with things that are challenging them and doing it in such a way like we described here on this Jimmy Rants. They know when you truly care. They also know when you truly don't care. It's why a lot of the criticism I get online, personally, I don't take it hard, because those people don't have my best interests in mind. And if you're watching this right now and you're about to leave a comment on YouTube or some other place that says something ugly about me, okay, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate your opinion. But your opinion and your criticism of me is not valid to me unless I know you and I know you're a longtime follower. I just don't listen to those kinds of things. So it's very selective who you get this criticism from, and instead choose to lift people up and choose to be compassionate and understanding. Man, the world would be so different if everybody took on that mantra. I just got some fresh, useless criticism about our interview. Abel said, yeah, yesterday I was on Abel James's Fat Burning Man podcast, and I saw on YouTube, actually, Abel, where somebody had said, I don't listen to fat people giving diet advice or something like that. It was just real ugly towards me. And I saw the response that you said that, he's still providing really good information out there. And then they come back, double-barreled, basically, well, he might have some good things to say, but he's not been relevant, blah, 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 all that stuff. I saw all that. I don't really pay attention to those kind of people. I mean, it's like, okay, if you've got your agenda to want to, quote, tear me down, bring me down, okay, great. Does it stop me from doing Jimmy Rants? No, I keep on pumping out the content. It has not deterred me one bit. I plan on continuing to do my work. There's a big dust up on one of the Facebook pages that I post on. There's a Jimmy Moore hater, and then there's a lot of like echo chamber Me Too people that hate me there on this page. But I keep posting almost to piss them off. And the guy that owns the page loves me, and he's like, keep posting. I don't care what they say. So anyway, let's see if there's any other comments came in here. I've been told I can be argumentative because I ask questions in regards to criticism. I ask questions for clarity, and I don't know how to function otherwise. Well, I don't think questions should ever be discouraged. I think if people have questions, questions are healthy. Questions are the way you learn. And like you said, refine and look for clarity. So no, questioning. When someone criticizes you, ask questions. That's fine. And if they take offense to that, maybe their criticism wasn't valid after all to begin with. All right, I know I saw something else come in here. What would we do without you? Oh, Shirley, thank you. Yeah, there's other people that speak this kind of stuff that I do. They're hard to find, though, the kind of people that speak truth. Abel James is one of them, by the way. Go follow him. Go listen to the Fat Burning Man podcast. But we definitely can do better in presenting ourselves when we have criticism for others. So I hope this was really helpful to you guys here today. Read this article again, psychologytoday.com, if you want to go look it up, when someone won't own up to their bad behavior. Good stuff, good stuff. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, you can engage live in the content, but you got to go follow me right here on Instagram. I'm at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you are there, engage live. We usually go Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, sometimes at 5 p.m. Eastern during the week, sometimes on the weekends, generally around 2-ish o'clock is when I start the show. I was a little bit late today, but it is what it is. We also simulcast on my Facebook live channel, so thank you guys for being here today, as well as YouTube Live. Thank you all for being here as part of the Jimmy Rants family. No criticism here. It's nothing but love. If you missed the live here on Instagram, it's now available on demand. When the show is over, it goes up on IGTV, so go check that out. If you miss it on IGTV or if you like other formats, pop on over to jimmyrants.com. You can listen to all the past episodes there. You can also go to YouTube, type in the keyword Jimmy Rants, you'll find the show. And on Tuesdays, on my flagship show, podcast show called the Living La Vida Low Carb Show, LLVLC.com, we air the best of the best audio of this show. This last week, we talked about Butter Bob, where is he, what happened to him. We've talked about the dietary guidelines one, and we sometimes will put multiple episodes in one post. I'm thinking of doing one that will be a compilation of all the meat shortage Jimmy Rants episodes that I did recently. So yeah, Tuesdays is when those air on the Living La Vida Low Carb Show. Go check it out, LLVLC.com. So guys, that's it for now. Until next time, we'll see you then.